They were siblings by blood, but their bond blurred every line. What started as closeness turned into secrecy, and what should have been a cry for help ended in death. He was 27. She was 23. And the argument that shattered everything didn't just break the rules, it broke a life. There are sins that hide behind silence, and love that becomes poison when it forgets its boundaries. In this house, guilt lived in the walls, and what unfolded behind closed doors left even the most seasoned investigators shaken. This is True Crime's Altar, where real sins are laid bare, justice is demanded, and every tragic choice echoes with consequence. If stories like this move you, disturb you, or open your eyes, subscribe now for weekly true crime episodes. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where in the world you're watching from. You never know whose story might be next. Isaiah Reddick always came across as gentle. Tall, reserved, and introspective, he kept to himself most of the time in Maplecroft, Georgia. At 27, he'd already lived through more emotional fractures than most men twice his age. But to those who knew him, really knew him, he had one unwavering devotion: his younger sister, Simone. Simone Reddick, 23, was vibrant in a way Isaiah never learned to be. While he drowned in sketchbooks and quiet playlists, she commanded rooms with her laughter and side eyes. The kind of girl who made eye contact when she spoke. The kind who never asked permission. They were born just 4 years apart, raised under the same roof by their mother, Valencia, after their father left when Simone was 8. In the quiet corners of that modest house, they became more than siblings. They became each other's shadow. To anyone on the outside, it was sweet, protective, admirable even. But inside that home, the line between comfort and dependence had long since eroded. Isaiah never dated seriously. He told himself it was because no one understood him. But if he was honest, and he rarely was, no one ever made him feel the way Simone did when she hugged him tight or called him late at night just to talk about dreams. No woman had his attention like she did. Simone, for her part, leaned into Isaiah like a second spine. After college, she moved back home without hesitation. She shared his bathroom, borrowed his clothes, cooked for him when she felt like it, ignored him when she didn't. She told herself it was just how close siblings were when they'd been through trauma together. That's what she told her friend Nia, at least. Nia Coleman wasn't blind. She noticed things. The way Simone talked about her brother with a warmth too deep for just blood. The possessiveness in her tone when another woman's name came up. The silence that stretched when she asked why Simone never brought boyfriends around. You ever think you two are too close? Nia asked once, voice low, as they folded laundry in Simone's room. Simone rolled her eyes and laughed it off. Girl, that's just Isaiah. He's always been soft like that. But that night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about that time Isaiah held her when she cried over a breakup, how his hand lingered on her back just a second too long, how she didn't pull away. Isaiah, in his own room, stared at the ceiling and tried to ignore the shape of Simone's silhouette through the hallway light. Their mother, Valencia, had her suspicions. She didn't have the words for them, but she saw how they sat close on the couch, how Simone's head tilted toward Isaiah's shoulder when they watched movies. She prayed it was nothing. When Isaiah turned 27, Simone threw him a small party. Just family, a cake, some music. But later that night, after the house had gone quiet, she knocked on his door in her sleep shorts. You up? She asked. He was, and he let her in. The next morning, nothing was said. Breakfast was made. Their mother smiled, and beneath the syrup and bacon grease, shame spread like a stain on the tablecloth. That was the first time, and not the last. There are some doors that once opened can never be closed again. Isaiah stopped going out after that night. He said it was because work was wearing him out, but really, it was because he couldn't look other women in the eye. No matter how normal his days appeared, coffee, errands, sketching in the park, he carried a private ache that no one could read, except Simone. Simone withdrew in her own way. She skipped brunches with friends, declined dates, ignored texts. When Nia pressed, Simone blamed anxiety. But in truth, she was terrified of slipping and revealing something no one could unhear. Their bond became a quiet orbit, tense and cautious. They no longer laughed as freely in front of Valencia. They avoided each other's gaze at the dinner table, and yet, behind closed doors, they still found themselves drifting together like gravity had chosen for them. One evening, Simone came home late from a solo drive. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Isaiah met her at the door, concerned. "You okay?" he asked, stepping closer. She nodded, paused, and then shook her head. "We can't keep doing this." Isaiah lowered his voice. "I know." But neither of them moved. Later that week, Simone began journaling again. She filled pages with confessions she'd never speak aloud. Words like shame, like fear, like longing. She wrote Isaiah's name more times than she'd admit, and each time she pressed the pen to the page, her hand shook. Isaiah, meanwhile, started sketching her. He said he was practicing portraits, but the truth was harder to swallow. Her eyes, her smile, her shoulders, dozens of pages, all Simone, and none of them looked like a sister. One Saturday, Lauren Easton, Isaiah's ex from years back, spotted him at the grocery store. "You've been a ghost," she said, smiling playfully. Isaiah gave a half smile. "Yeah, life's just been busy." Lauren eyed him for a beat longer. "Busy with who?" He shook his head, but she noticed the subtle defensiveness, the discomfort. She'd dated him long enough to know when he was lying. Simone saw Lauren's name pop up on Isaiah's phone that night. She didn't say anything at first, but the silence was heavy. "Are y'all talking again?" she asked finally, not meeting his eyes. "It was just a run-in," Isaiah said. "Nothing more." Simone didn't respond. She just walked to her room and closed the door. That night, Isaiah lay awake, wondering how something meant to bring comfort had become a prison. He loved Simone. He couldn't deny that, but he also knew something inside of them was starting to break. Simone stood in the bathroom mirror the next morning, staring at her own face. She didn't recognize herself. Her eyes looked older. Her lips stayed pressed together, holding back words she couldn't even write. Later that week, Nia stopped by unannounced. "You okay?" she asked, studying Simone's drawn expression. "I'm fine," Simone said too quickly. But Nia wasn't buying it. "You're not fine, and I think you're hiding something." Simone froze. "I know y'all are close, but it's not normal, Simone. It doesn't feel right." Tears welled in Simone's eyes. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Nia sat down slowly. "What did you do?" Simone didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat locked around the truth. That night, Isaiah knocked on her door. "What did you say to Nia?" he asked. "Nothing," Simone whispered. "But she knows something's wrong." Isaiah sat on the edge of her bed. "Do you think she'll tell anyone?" "I don't know." There was silence between them. Then Simone leaned into him, desperate for comfort. He held her, arms tight around her back. But this time, the embrace felt different, tainted by fear, by guilt, by the slow crumbling of everything they had tried to keep secret. Outside the house, Nia sat in her car, gripping her phone. Her thumb hovered over the call button. She didn't press it yet. But the silence was starting to scream. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope between two lives. At home, Isaiah and Simone moved with artificial ease, morning greetings, shared chores, light talk about groceries. But underneath, everything had shifted. They no longer looked at each other the same way. Isaiah grew quieter. He began spending more time outside the house, wandering the edges of Maplecroft with his sketch pad in hand, trying to draw something that made him feel clean. But every face he tried to create reminded him of Simone. Simone, meanwhile, became emotionally erratic. One moment she was warm, affectionate, even playful. The next, she'd snap, retreat, or cry behind closed doors. She'd leave her room only to check if Isaiah was home, then disappear again. Her guilt had become a shadow that followed her even in sleep. One evening, Valencia walked in on Simone sitting on Isaiah's bed, holding one of his sketches, one of her. Valencia paused. "That's a beautiful drawing," she said, but her voice held something else. Simone quickly stood. "Yeah, he's just been practicing portraits." Valencia nodded, but her eyes lingered too long on the page. She didn't say more, but that night she pulled out an old journal and began writing, a habit she hadn't touched in years. Mothers know things, and even when they can't speak it, they write it down to remember they weren't imagining it. Meanwhile, Naya's silence was thinning. She hadn't confronted Simone again, but she had told someone else, her cousin, who happened to work part-time at the county clinic. "I think something's wrong in that house," she had said quietly. "Like? Really wrong." Back at the Reddick home, tension continued to build. Isaiah came home late one night. Simone was waiting in the living room. "You don't tell me where you go anymore," she said. Isaiah looked exhausted. "Because every time I walk out that door, I feel like I'm walking into fire." "You don't think I feel that too?" she snapped. "You think I like this? Lying, hiding, jumping at every shadow?" He looked at her, eyes weary. "Then maybe we stop." Simone froze. "Stop?" Isaiah sat down, resting his face in his hands. "This can't go on. Whatever this is, it's killing us." Her voice cracked. "You're all I have." He looked up. "And you're all I think about. But that doesn't make this right." They sat there in silence. It wasn't a breakup. It wasn't a decision. It was grief before the loss. The next morning, Simone didn't speak to him. By midweek, Valencia invited over her sister, Aunt Renetta, for dinner. Isaiah tried to smile through it. Simone avoided the table altogether. After the meal, Renetta cornered Valencia in the kitchen. "What's going on with those two?" Valencia didn't answer. Her silence said enough. On Friday, Lauren Easton showed up at the art studio where Isaiah sometimes volunteered. She hadn't seen him since their brief encounter weeks ago. "You look tired," she said softly. He nodded. "I am." She walked closer. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." Isaiah looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "You wouldn't understand." That night, Simone asked him if he still had feelings for Lauren. He didn't answer. She stared at him, jaw trembling. "You want to erase me now?" Isaiah stepped back. "Simone, we're not well. We need help." Her voice rose. "I'm not crazy. You came to me too. You held me like I was more than your sister. Don't rewrite this like it was all me." "I'm not rewriting anything," Isaiah said. "But we've got to end it." Simone slapped him. The sound rang in the kitchen like a shot. She gasped, covering her mouth immediately. He didn't yell. He didn't move. He just stared at her, eyes hollow. She broke down crying and ran upstairs. Isaiah stood frozen in place. The house was quiet the rest of the weekend, but a storm was building. And when secrets reach their boiling point, they don't just spill, they explode. The silence in the Reddick home had taken on a dangerous weight. Simone no longer left her room before noon. Isaiah had taken to sleeping on the couch, though sleep rarely came. Their mother noticed, but didn't ask. Some things she feared were bigger than a mother's intervention. One afternoon, Isaiah came home to find Simone sitting on the porch with a bottle of wine beside her. Her eyes were glassy, her voice distant. "Do you think we ruined each other?" she asked. He stood by the steps, hesitant. "I think we lost ourselves." She gave a broken laugh. "Then let's just start over." "You know we can't," he said quietly. She stared at him, a long, unreadable look. Then she stood and walked inside without another word. Later that night, Simone called Nia. "I need help," she whispered. Nia drove over in silence, heart pounding. When she arrived, Simone met her at the door, eyes puffy and red. "I'm not okay," Simone said, "and I'm scared." Nia hugged her. "Talk to me." Simone took a deep breath. "Isaiah and we crossed a line. I don't know how it happened. I didn't want it to happen." Simone's voice cracked. "He was the only one who ever really saw me. I didn't mean for it to get this far." Nia stood in shock, eyes wide, mouth open. "Simone, this isn't just about you. This is serious, dangerous." Simone nodded, but her tears told the truth. She didn't know how. Nia left that night shaken. She told her mother, who told her pastor, who quietly told a friend in law enforcement. The circle had begun to widen. Meanwhile, Isaiah had started packing his things. He was planning to move in with their cousin Darius until he could find his own place. When Simone saw the suitcase, she panicked. "You're leaving?" Isaiah nodded. "I have to." She blocked the doorway. "So that's it? You get to walk away while I stay here with the pieces?" "We both need to heal, Simone." Her voice rose. "Don't you dare act like you're the hero here." "I'm not," he said. "I'm just trying to stop this before it destroys us." Tears streamed down her face. Too late. Isaiah stepped forward and tried to gently move past her. Simone shoved him hard. He stumbled back, hitting the edge of the dining table. The room went still. "Simone," he said, voice steadying. "Please. I don't want to hurt you." She grabbed the lamp from the side table, not to use, just to threaten. But her hands were shaking. Isaiah reached to take it from her, and in the struggle, they lost balance. There was a thud, a sharp gasp. Isaiah collapsed against the table, then slid to the floor. Simone stood frozen, the lamp still in her hands. "Isaiah?" she whispered. No answer. She dropped the lamp, knees buckling. "No, no, no." Valencia, hearing the crash, rushed in from the backyard and screamed. Isaiah lay motionless on the floor, a small pool of blood forming beneath his head. Simone was shaking, sobbing, kneeling over his body. I didn't mean to. Valencia pulled her back, screaming his name. The neighbors called 911 after hearing the cries.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Paramedics arrived quickly. Officer Mitchell Lane was the first on the scene. He stepped into the living room and froze. "What happened here?" he asked. Simone looked up, her face pale. We were fighting. He was leaving. I tried to stop him." Detective Colleen Hart arrived moments later and began securing the scene. Isaiah was declared dead at 11:24 p.m. As Simone was led away in handcuffs, her mother collapsed to the ground, wailing. Nia arrived just as they were placing Simone in the patrol car. "Simone!" she cried out. Simone turned to her, eyes vacant. "I told you," she whispered. "I told you I didn't know how to stop." The Reddick home was never the same after that night. The blood had been cleaned, the furniture rearranged, but the air was heavy, the silence louder than ever. Simone was taken into custody immediately. She didn't resist. She didn't cry again either, not in public. Detective Colleen Hart interviewed her at length. "Tell me exactly what happened," the detective said gently. Simone's voice was hollow. "I tried to stop him from leaving. I thought if I just made him stay, we could talk it through." "Were you afraid he would tell someone?" "I don't know what I was afraid of," she whispered. "Losing him, maybe. Or losing the version of me he made feel wanted." Dr. Eric Mahler, the court-assigned therapist, spent weeks meeting with Simone in holding. "She's not insane," he told the prosecutor. "But she's emotionally fractured, deeply. This was a codependent entanglement built on trauma, secrecy, and emotional confusion." Prosecutor Camila Sorrento reviewed the file without blinking. "The law doesn't bend for blurred lines. A man is dead. She'll face it." The community in Maplecroft was stunned. Churchgoers whispered. Neighbors speculated. Former classmates scrolled through old photos of the siblings, now seeing them through new eyes. Valencia Reddick didn't speak to the press. She stopped answering calls, stopped going to church. All she did was sit in Isaiah's room, quiet, still, and lost. The trial moved quickly. The defense, led by Dean Wexley, pleaded for voluntary manslaughter, citing emotional distress and long-term psychological trauma. The prosecution pushed for second-degree murder. Simone testified. Her voice shook, but she didn't deny anything. "I loved him," she said through tears. "But I shouldn't have. Not like that." The jury deliberated for 10 hours. In the end, Simone was convicted of manslaughter. The judge, Eleanor Breckenridge, delivered a firm but restrained sentence, 12 years in prison with eligibility for parole after 7. When the gavel struck, Simone didn't flinch. In her final moments before transport, she turned to her mother. Valencia reached for her, but words failed them both. The silence was their inheritance now. As the prison gates closed behind her, Simone whispered Isaiah's name one last time. Behind the cold walls of that facility, no one saw her cry. But she did. When blood becomes obsession and love forgets its boundaries, innocence dies long before anyone does. This story is not about one woman's mistake. It's about the unbearable silence that grows when trauma is never spoken, when guilt is never healed, and when blurred lines are never redrawn. Isaiah Reddick's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a warning that there are feelings you must name before they become chains, and that when love hides in the shadows, it can lead even the purest souls to do the unthinkable. If you ever feel bound by emotions you don't understand, don't suffer in silence. Speak up. Seek help. There is no shame in asking for guidance, but there is danger in waiting too long. This has been True Crimes Altar, where sins are laid bare and justice is remembered. If this story moved you, disturbed you, or made you reflect, don't scroll past. Subscribe for weekly true crime episodes. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Your voice matters, and so does your story.